Welcome to the first episode of the Community Corner. And today, we're joined by Dr. Christopher Manente, a leader, innovator, Army combat veteran, and a tireless advocate for adults with autism. Dr. Manente is the founding executive director of the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services and an associate professor of clinical practice at Rutgers Graduate School of Applied and Professional Psychology. His career spans work as an assistant professor of education at the Caldwell University, a statewide consultant for students with ASD, and a senior coordinator of adult services at Rutgers Douglas Developmental Disability Center. He has authored peer-reviewed articles, co-authored book chapters, and presented at conferences across the country on advocating for community-based educational, vocational, and residential opportunities for adult learners with autism. Most recently, his work has been featured in the news for helping launch New Jersey's first neuro-inclusive apartment building for autistic adults, a groundbreaking project designed to create independence, opportunity, and true community inclusion. It's an honor to have him here today to share his insights, experiences, and vision for building communities where everyone has a place. So I hope you enjoy our conversation with Dr. Chris Manente. Thank you. So, good morning, Chris. How's your morning so far?
How's your day? No, thanks for having me, Nick. I appreciate it. So this morning, just about every morning, was pretty busy, pretty hectic, even at times. So I ran over to the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services, where we support adults with autism and other forms of neurodivergence. And we had a few of our members of our community that were off to a rough start today. Had one of our members in particular was in the midst of a behavioral crisis and needed some help kind of getting regulated and just getting on with his day, and we were able to do that, which is it's a wonderful gift to them to be able to help people that no one else is able to help. We're kind of a last stop in that respect for some. But yeah, I mean, first things first, sorry for being a few minutes late. I honestly, so I always say this, being really busy and neurodivergent is a really dangerous combination. Cause as someone with ADHD who's neurodivergent, I hate any idle time. And I have never any work to do. So I'm constantly packing my day end to end with stuff, which results in me kind of sometimes having to scramble from one thing to the other, which I think, for the folks that I'm interacting with throughout the day can be pretty annoying, right? Because they just think maybe I don't manage my time well, or maybe I didn't leave early enough, or all this stuff. Yeah. It's funny, being a vet, right? In the back of my head, I'm always this isn't what I was trained to do.
Not being on time.
Yeah, not being on time
is the most anxiety. Yeah. So, out of all the things, and I don't think people understand unless you serve, that I'm actually not scared of many things, but the one thing I am scared of is not being on time.
Totally.
So I get everywhere insanely early. And I agree with you. I do a million things and then they dovetail. So what is that like when you come in during the day and that's the first thing that is going on?
For me, it's just normal, I think, which is, again, is a little different. I've been doing this for 20 years now. When I separated from active duty, I was in the Army. I was 11 Bravo.
How long were you in the Army?
4.5 years. And I got out in December 2004 and started at Rutgers as an undergraduate psychology student a month later in January 2005. And pretty quickly got kind of consumed with the idea of working with people with autism who were really severely impacted. And had severe challenge behavior, which is aggression or self-injury or, property destruction, short and sweet. It's folks who can't typically communicate the way neurotypical people do vocally. And so they're because of their lack of ability to communicate, quote unquote, appropriately, as the majority of humans do, that communication comes out any way it can. And, sometimes that is through aggression or self-injury. I can't tell you what I need to tell you right now vocally, right? So I'm going to hit myself, right? To make sure you take notice that, like, I need something right now. So 20 years, it's pretty normalized for me. But it's not lost on me that, when I'm out with members of my community, my small community out in society, that many, as I call them, civilians, I've carried that term from active duty.
I agree with you, though. As a special needs,
don't know, right?
As a former special needs teacher, I agree with you.
Civilians
they don't get it.
And they're
because it's a different profession.
Totally.
So I taught special needs for 8 years before I switched to just running my gym and doing that stuff. And I still work with special needs people. And it's really hard to explain to people, like, the type of teaching you do, it isn't the same. I've taught honors and AP. It's way more rewarding to work in the special needs because it's the craft of teaching that you are getting better at. Like, content's easy. That's memorization. And I'm an English teacher. It's all memorization. Nothing's new. It's all written, and then you just interpret. And then you do the same thing over and over again, which gets insanely boring. But then special needs, it's not necessarily about the content as much as it is about skills and getting them to interact correctly with the world. And actually, my biggest question is, so you started out in the Army as infantry. Where did you serve? Like, I want to kind of go into that before we even get into special needs work, because the juxtaposition of these two things is wild. So tell me a little bit about your military experience and why you joined.
Yeah, maybe I could just rewind a little bit before then. So I just mentioned that I openly identify as a neurodivergent person. I haven't always been so forthcoming about that because there's huge stigma around being neurodivergent. The majority of people in society, I think, still don't have a good understanding of what that means. And maybe just to clear the air for people listening. Everyone understands the concept of diversity, right? Humans are different, right? Like, simply put, and the ways that humans are different are infinite, right? I mean, we could talk about diversity across sex and gender and race, religion, socioeconomics, that there's enormous diversity. And so neurodiversity is just one facet of the way that humans are different. It's actually probably the facet of diversity that is most taken for granted.
Yeah, I think it's the largest part of who you are.
I mean, just you and I sitting here, right? We're both human, right? As far as everyone knows, right? Exactly. We're keeping up a good masquerade. But so, like, the human experience that you're most familiar with is yours, right? You know what the world looks like through your eyes. Right, your eyes interpret this world around you, and you make meaning of it, somehow, with this glob of this organ that's in your skull, and all this stuff, right? I mean, so, like, you assume that my experience as being the same species as you is, like, somewhat similar, right? But it's actually the farthest thing from
No, it's not. And when I was a cop in the Army, like, doing investigations, two people will, and I won't say will have oftentimes a vastly different interpretation of the same thing that happened. And I'll even see it like I've seen tapes via audio and visual. And I'm like, and as an outside person, I can kind of view facts. And then also, like, but their intrinsic, how they feel about what you say, and all of that. It's just really interesting about people and their perceptions about the world.
And even that, so that's anchored in the situation, right? So you get like a snapshot about how people's neurological profiles are different, right? But then, extend that to every moment of every day, right? Where I'm experiencing the light in this room different than you are, the sound, right? Just the feeling of being, present in this thing we call existence. It's just entirely different for me than it is for you. And it's something we take for granted. And so that's kind of, simply put, is the concept of neurodiversity, right? It's the natural variation amongst people's cognitive or neurological functioning across our species, and it's vast, right? There's a human spectrum, right, of neurological experience. Now, people who are considered neurotypical are people that don't have a formal diagnosis of, autism or ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, Tourette's, etc. Right? So those classifications, diagnoses, communities, identities that I just rattled off, these are people who you consider neurodivergent. So they're divergent from what is considered typical or the majority of humans in terms of neurological processing. So we're all neurodiverse. This is a common misconception, because a lot of times people refer to autistic people or people with ADHD as neurodiverse, which is true because we're all neurodiverse. But without knowing anyone's, the identities of profiles, in this entire, building that we're in, everyone's here neurodiverse, right? I'm neurodivergent, right? Because I was diagnosed with ADHD at an early age, along with other things. So going back, again, school really never worked for me in terms of the traditional arrangement.
So high school was not your bag?
I was expelled through kindergarten.
Dude, I got suspended 13 times in middle school.
So in kindergarten, I literally failed nap time. Right, and look, I was going to a private Catholic school, so it was
Chris failed nap time.
I failed nap time in kindergarten. Legitimately, they'd have us lay down our mats, right? You're supposed to go to sleep for a nap in the middle of the day, and I was always pretty crafty, right? So I would close my eyes for a bit until they walked away, and then there's no way I was going to sleep. I am supercharged all day long. I go 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's a superpower, though.
It is, but it's a curse. It's what we would call in twice exceptional or neurodivergent community as a cursed gift. Because yes, it's a superpower, but I can't turn it off, right? So it's even if I'm tired, if I'm exhausted, everything's still charged up and going.
You know what's funny is so I empathize and totally understand your experience going through school. And it's funny, you started out at a Catholic school. I started out at a Catholic school in Edison, St. Matthew, and they had a very difficult time with me. And when I was diagnosed SLD at a young age in Edison, and then I went through the special needs programming in Edison because I have ADHD, they couldn't handle it. And literally they just could not empathize with the amount of I can't sit here doing nothing. You're actually really boring. And I don't want to sleep in the middle of the day. You have me sitting most of the day. So I'm not tired. And it's hard for us to integrate, I think, into this system. And on the high school, and you watch the adults. So I saw the kids for several years go through this, and I think a lot of them need to move more and are so stuck in the rigidity of whatever the system that we're trying to do that school isn't neurodivergent. No, it is a factory. So a kid like me who flourished in college because there's a level of autonomy.
Right. Well, and there was no limit to how you could structure your day to be engaging, right? So again, so people who are neurodivergent, who are hyperactive, especially those of us with ADHD, right? It's not that we can't focus, right? It's that we're trying to focus on 100 things at once. And if you're asking us to sit still, quietly, passively, and maintain sustained focus on only one thing, sitting in a classroom, listening to a teacher drone on about something that is far below our ability to comprehend and move past, that's torture. That's you might as well sit me in the corner, right, and ask me to stare at a wall, because it's pretty equivalent, right?
It is.
And that was my situation in school. It wasn't that it was hard for me; it was impossible. I was never going to be able to learn that way. And so again, I would pretend to be napping, and then I'd low crawl into another classroom, right, and get into mischief. And I was 5, right?
Yeah.
So
and in a Catholic school, they are not.
No, it's not happening.
Dude,
it's you're going to do it our way, or you're not welcome here anymore.
Yes.
That's what happened.
So 5 years old, I'm in St. Matt's. This nun would get mad at me because I did not tie my shoes in the manner they wanted, which is the adult manner. I would do bunny ears. Yep. I'm sorry, I'm a degenerate.
Yes.
Okay?
Your shoes were tied, right?
My shoes were tied,
right? So what would it matter?
And because it's a Catholic school, and they're really ingrained in traditional roles, the nun would have, yes, and all of this, the nun would have a young lady tie my shoe,
right,
and then go. Susie, I'm just making up it. Susie, come tie Nick's shoe since he can't tie it properly. And I'm like,
right. And
like,
so in that scenario too, this is a great example. So not only are you wrong because you didn't do it the way you were told, but you're probably stupid.
Right? And I remember this for the rest of my life.
It's like you clearly can't get this, and it's not that you can't get this. It's that you had a different way of doing it that was more effective, more efficient for you, and also like realize like why do we have to do it anyway? Nice. Like even as a child, like neurodivergent kids. So there's this funny quote that one of my kids' teachers said to me. That it's really funny. It's like, it's really hard, for a teacher to stand there speaking to a student that's talking down to them while looking up at them, right? Because like as a neurodivergent child, like most of the time, like you don't like respect a teacher just because they're taller and older, right? Like especially if you know the right answer, or especially, God forbid, like something they don't. And so like my whole school career, I was like really obnoxious. Like I know I was perceived that way by a lot of my teachers, because I'd already read the whole book, right? And I'm still like, their job was still to make me sit there all day. And
I would do that too. I'd read ahead
for them.
I'd read ahead, and then I'm just like, especially things I'm intrigued with. And I loved English, because I'm like, oh, that opens up everything. Everything is my oyster. I can read about everything.
Well, and it's also like, hey, what is it you want me to do? Oh, you need me to learn this? Okay, I'll get that out of the way. So that way, like, I can do something else.
Do you think that, so, and this is it, this goes back to the military. So we go through this whole elementary into high school, a kind of a failure to adapt to the rigidity of this academic institutional practice, right? So,
and then we can do a whole
why do
probably multiple sections. We can do a whole segment on the United States system of public schools.
We can talk about that. I totally love to talk about this. I love it.
Again, how it's currently built on a system of efficiency where everyone gets something, but it's really not built on a system of excellence where everyone gets the opportunity to realize their full potential. And that's so while again it's the best educational system in the world, it is, because again there's no other country at this scale that provides something for everyone, no matter your identity. That's incredible. It's still like really grossly inadequate for the majority of students to attend. If we wanted the outcome of education to be like everyone has the ability to realize their full potential.
The self-action.
So I think we put a pin in that. It's like,
so how did you end up going from this to another extremely rigid system? I'm intrigued to hear what you're thinking, because like I know, again, I'm similar in past way.
And when I was a kid, they really just didn't even know what to call me or what to do with me at school.
Because like a butt.
Exactly.
And that's a nice version.
No. And at times, like I was supported in self-contained, gifted, and talented in one school district I was in. And I bounced around from schools a lot, but and in another district, I was self-contained special ed in a class with kids who have similar behavioral profiles, who are considered disruptive or, again, obnoxious or, disrespectful or not a rule follower. So like
my favorite kids.
I'm totally.
That's my favorite.
So like they didn't really know what to do with me. But in general, I found school to be a big waste of my time, in general. And I dropped out at 16, first chance I had, which, it's like, my life experience is a little bit different in a lot of ways. I think there are like probably a few humans on the planet that are high school dropouts, like combat veteran, infantry, prior infantry soldiers who are now like, PhD level, doctoral educated leaders. So like I'm always feeling like a little.
So you left at 16, and then did you get a GED?
So I 16 got my GED, and at that time, in order to enlist in the military. My parents had to sign off, and I needed 15 college credits with a GED, because that's considered the equivalent of a high school diploma for the purpose of enlisting.
You were in Jersey?
So I went to Bergen Community College. I'm from Bergen County originally. Signed up for a semester, full load, 15 credits at 16 years old, got a 4.0 GPA. It was like, wow, great. So college is going to be fun at some point, but it's still not the challenge I'm really looking for, because here I am, like I dropped out of high school, got my GED, did this for a semester, like easily, like it was not hard. And again, I'm not, like it always sounds icky to me, like I'm saying this a lot, it's not that I'm smart. Like school's like I'm hyperlexic, I read really fast, somehow it sticks there in my brain.
I feel bad just
in so many ways.
I agree with
like, I'm truly like, so when I was a kid, this term didn't exist, but now I would be if I was in school today as a child, like they'd refer to me as what's called twice exceptional. It's people who have like gifts, who could do some things pretty effortlessly really well, but also have deep deficits, right? Again, going back to like, my inability to stay organized or stay on track or be on time, or like I have executive functioning challenges.
So that's why the biggest thing, like when I talk to parents when parents talk to me about tutoring their kids, and I'm like, you don't need an academic tutor. You need an executive functioning skills tutor, which is a skills tutor of like, how do you exist in this plane of life to become an adult?
Special ed is considered, because again, like you were saying, like teaching gen ed is like, you have this static content, right? That doesn't change. It's all in the books. It's written on paper, so it doesn't move. It doesn't just
dogmatic.
And your job is to make these students like hear it, learn it, retain it, and then recall and regurgitate in some, right? And so in special education, you're absolutely right. So you don't have, there's some static content that you're expected to teach, but really it's more dynamic, authentic.
Well, literally my boss would,
in the world, you're teaching people to tune into, like, hey, when this other person looks you in the eye and starts talking to you, right? So that's dynamic. You never know who that person's going to be, when they're going to come, like what they look like, what their role is. But when that scenario happens in the real world, this is how to respond. And like, you're teaching this student, again, how to survive in the real world, given this like infinite number of like dynamic contingencies that could occur unpredictably.
So back to the initial question. Why the hell did you join the Army?
Yeah, because for me, I had no other choice, right?
Okay.
Like, I didn't come from a family that would have been capable of paying for college for me. I was a high school dropout, and even, with 15 college credits, like that wouldn't be, that wouldn't help me get accepted to some elite university. Like, before, I had really bad experiences in school and kind of walked away feeling like I was garbage, right? Like, I literally had many teachers tell me, like, I'd never succeed. One of the favorite things to say to me was like, I'm too smart for my own good, right? Which is a
crazy thing to say.
Like, how can I be
Einstein smart?
I'm sure as a child.
Yeah.
I think that's how the stories go. But so like, I was really down on myself, and it stunk, because as a young kid, like in first and second grade, like I had aspirations of being like a doctor or an engineer or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not telling you,
failure in school, and teachers who told me I was trash, for being neurodivergent, frankly, it kind of wiped that stuff away. So at 16, like I ran from school, even though I really loved sports. Like that's the one thing that stunk. Like I was a pretty decent wrestler. I love playing football. And like always think about like, what if I had proper supports, and like, could I have it?
Yeah, but that's why you know what, like,
so it was a hard
that's
decision.
why you give it back. That's why you give that type of love. Because I train Chris's children.
Yeah.
But that's why you give that type of love to your children, where they have the opportunity to do these varied things, where they're doing rugby, they're doing a little bit of football, they're doing a little bit of boxing and wrestling and gymnastics, like exposing our children to the wide swaths of everything that you can do. Because school puts a governor on you, and this limiter to go, well, this is your capacity. And I remember sitting in an IEP meeting, and I had a teacher basically go, Nick should really start working like with his hands. That's going to be really, I think that's the best direction he should go in.
And we can unpack that too.
And sitting, there's so many things.
I mean, like, I have Army buddies, right? Like that when we both, separated, one of my Army buddies went and became, a union lineman, right? So work on power lines. And
it was a good job.
He will always make way more money than I do. And we're not talking about just like marginally. Like,
no, a lot.
I'll make like double, and some years triple my salary if there's a big storm, But still, like if we're at a social event together, and this is just a hypothetical, like this has to have a reason. But if we're both standing there, right, and a group of people form the way it does in these human gatherings, like, hi, I'm Chris, who are you? What do you do? What do you do? Right. So if he said like, well, I'm a union electrician, like I'm a lineman, like people would probably be like, oh, didn't go to college, huh? Right? And then if I'm like, oh, I'm a university professor at Rutgers and I run this big set, it's like, oh, tell me more about that. So like the social capital, right?
Well, it's so weird and you know, we did it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And we did it. And I say we as a society.
Yeah.
Because I never felt that way about these people. Like, when I look at a mechanic, I go, I actually don't find value in what I'm good at. What I'm good at is actually school, which is surprising. And I'm good at knowledge. And the fact is, like, oh, you can fix this car with your hands and your mind.
It's like a tangible thing.
Yeah.
How impressive.
I think that's...
I'm drawn to that.
Yeah, I find these people interesting. So, like, and it's crazy that and now we're in a place in our society where we don't have enough electricians. We don't have enough of these people. And the median age of them is 55.
Yep, totally.
That is actually also a national security issue because, like, we can't fix our infrastructure without the bodies to do that. And we denigrated these group of people because they don't want to read T.S. Eliot's love song by J. Alfred Prufrock. I'm sorry, I'm a dork.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting.
But to your point, we're all guilty, right?
Yeah.
And this actually ties into the other, session that we'll have to do on public schooling, because public schooling actually, like way back in the early, like 1910, 1915, was totally reformed to follow this college prep curriculum that is now like just considered, to be school, synonymous with education. And it was largely perpetuated by a bunch of college and university presidents who were asked by the president of the United States at that time to form a committee and like totally reform like the curricula for public education nationally. And so that was the start of it, like over 100 years ago. And then with the way that colleges and universities have been viewed as like the only pathway to real success.
Yeah, they tell you, you're earning $1 million more.
And parents are super guilty of this too, right? Because like, when little kids are asked what they want to be when they grow up, even as young as like 4, 5, 6 years old, like if one of those little kids says, I want to be a plumber, like their parents promptly correct them, like, nah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, today they're like, yes, please be a plumber.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't find it.
I don't know. I think the majority of parents are still kind of caught up, and because it's still like, and there are statistics that suggest that if you go to college and university, like,
but I think so. Stats frustrate. Yeah, stats frustrate because I think that stats actually. I really want to look at.
And like, by the way, I work for Rutgers University, friends. University's good.
No, I don't think.
Man, like everyone should keep applying and going.
No, I think, but there's a place.
No, I'm being silly a little bit. No, again, like obviously universities are important, right?
But for jobs that need it,
be the only way. It shouldn't be portrayed as the only way that people succeed. And frankly, like that's like a big vulnerability for higher education today. I think we've overpromised.
And underdelivered?
And underdelivered the value proposition.
Well, so I just read...
You can't just get a degree in anything, have that degree and expect, automatically to get the job of your dreams and to be like the CEO of that organization one day. Like, I think it's given young people kind of a false, sense of like
security.
Yeah.
So like I just
entitlement.
Yes, and I just read like an article about and this is a recent one with the development of AI, and it's a discussion I have with my friends and with kids.
Yeah.
And the big discussion is like, so now you're entering college, you better be very strategic about what you're majoring in, so that one, there's going to be this level of automation where they're going to need less of whatever particular, especially with coding and computerization of things. And they're seeing these graduating classes so the unemployment now with new graduates is through the roof because of many of them, because remember, learn to code, right? Learn to code.
That's a huge push.
And they did, and now they're working for Chipotle.
Right.
And, we need just like we have neurodivergent people, society is diverse.
Right.
So now I have people who shouldn't have ever went to college because that actually wasn't authentically the route that they were supposed to go.
Right.
And no one fostered a love of, actually, I like tinkering and stuff. I think plumbing would be cool.
Yeah.
It's a great job. You're going to make more money than me. Like right out the gate.
I like stonemasonry because it has a level of forgiveness. Like especially if you work in 3-dimensional stone.
Yes.
It doesn't like plumbing. Like it has to be precise. Or
that's hard.
Yeah. So for someone, I'm genuinely
No, I can't do a plumber. I can't
train stuff. I'm always in awe, like you, of like the mechanic or the electric. Like I'll never be that, right? Because again, I'll just I don't think I'm sure if I worked hard enough and long, but it would be tedious to me to like be able to operate at that level of precision.
I agree. I am handy enough.
I do this, right? Like, close enough, right? And that's, I like that kind of deal.
My wife makes fun of me, literally about this, because I'm handy enough.
Right.
I'm actually a great workhorse.
Yep.
So like, you tell me what to do, and I'll be like, word, I'll do that.
And that masonry, like you're carrying big rocks and placing them into that's for me.
So now, like, you've been doing this for the last 20 years, and why'd you leave the military? You did that for 4 years.
Yeah,
and then made a big pivot.
Yeah, 4.5 years from the age of 17 to 21, from 2000 to 2004.
Dude, you literally did a college stint, like basically what a college student
Exactly. And it actually, this is great. It's a good parallel because the military provided for me what I think most people hope college would provide for them. It's like a launching pad to their adult life. And the military was a much better option for me because, for better or for worse, like my drill sergeants literally and figuratively beat the discipline into me to be able to sit or stand still for prolonged periods of time. Like I maintain like that saved my life. Like
I agree with you.
Legitimately needed that. Not everyone needs that level of intensity. But that force, that status, that drill sergeant intensity was really like the only like stimulation, contingency, however you want to describe it, I would have listened or responded to. And I self-selected, like that's what I wanted. I wanted a real challenge. But so when I was looking to separate, most of my buddies were going towards security work, police work. That's like kind of the skill set that an infantry sergeant would have for the most part to then leverage into another job. And again, it was, 2003, I was like the occupying force in Iraq for my second deployment. So like there was a need for private contractors.
Yeah.
To go over there.
I have good friends who made a lot of money.
Money's incredible.
Made a lot of money to do it.
But I made the decision then. So my wife, Lindsay, and I have been together since high school, right? So even before I went active duty, we were together and we stayed together the whole time. Knew that.
Bless your wife.
Yeah, really. No kidding. So I knew family was what I wanted more than anything in the world. Like, so I knew I wanted a family with kids, with Lindsay, and my choice as to what was next for me profession-wise, kind of circled around that. And I didn't think being a police officer or going over private security in a combat zone, would be the best option to building and growing, a healthy, family together. So when I was active duty, it was crazy. I don't think many people think about like who enlists on active duty today. But so I was a 19-year-old sergeant. I had been promoted ahead of my peers from private to sergeant in 2 years, from say 17 to 19. So I found myself in charge of like an infantry team, and all of a sudden I'm thrust in this position as educator. And a lot of the privates that were thrown onto my team were prior special ed students, or even if they weren't prior special ed students, they had learning differences for sure. And that was a part of the reason why, like me, they had gone the route of active duty.
Yes, misfit toys. The military is filled with misfit toys.
Yeah, totally, exactly. And so like I just found that I had great intuition in like anticipating the needs of the soldiers on the learning needs of the soldiers on my team. Like if they couldn't get the weapon systems knowledge from the Army manual, or like understand the battle strategy from the Army manual, like I found that I was naturally able to adapt and differentiate the instructional approach or the content to help them learn. And I needed to do that. Like my life depended on it.
Yeah.
So it was a high stakes thing. So I was really successful at that. I really liked that. And it also clicked in to kind of my core values. Like in the back of my mind, I was always like, I would love to be able to help other people and felt disenfranchised by the societal system, education, etc. Like me, like I couldn't have succeeded in school. That's why I went to the military. Like if only I could find a job helping other people who had, similar or, different but parallel experiences. And so that's where I when I got out of the military, I was like, I want to be a special education teacher, right? That was my original plan. And teaching comes with perks too. Like anyone who says like they don't at least in part go towards teaching because of the hours.
Yeah, I think they're liars. Yeah, I think they're liars. They're because it is hard.
This too. Like considered a professional. Like considered someone who uses their brain for a living, which is the dividing line between the derogatory term of blue collar, right? And white collar, right? It's like white collar, good. College educated, use your brain, for
yeah, but I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. Like, so just like a finance banker goes into that knowing you're probably not going to see your family as much, you're going to be overly consumed about money, and you're going to get some nice rewards with that. Educating, the perk is you will have good benefits, you'll have a decent salary. In New Jersey, honestly, I think they have good salaries for what we're doing.
Yep.
And how honest, I worked as a teacher for
hours.
Yeah, and a number of hours.
Teachers have great teachers work way after 3 p.m.
Yes.
No one's suggesting that.
But I will say, like, as I got deep into my career, I wasn't working like that because I was more efficient with my time and a subject matter expert.
It's up.
So you earn. So you
building content.
Yeah. So early is a lot. But then when you start mastering your craft, honestly, it's not that much.
And especially if you're teaching gen ed and talking about that static content. That change
dude, that's like it's the cookie cutter every year. I literally watched a man do the same thing for about 15 years.
And again, not knocking teachers.
No, he was actually an exceptional teacher. He was great.
Teachers are excellent. Great teachers are dynamic. Right, but I
just couldn't do that.
Yeah, the workload does lessen over time the more you do it. In terms of number of actual hours you have to spend.
But it's actually important for the teacher to have that kind of open autonomy, because that is what fosters like the music teacher deciding to work after school and do programming. Right. That is what allows somebody like Mr. Villanueva, who's honestly the inspiration for me to become a teacher, and he would sit with me till 5 o'clock almost every day, talking to me about poetry. Yeah. And literally doing these in-depth, that was like my first mentor in education and made me feel seen. That is what allowed, he couldn't do that in a normal traditional work setting of this 9 to 5. No, he's able to do that and give love to a kid who actually needed love in this educational setting. Because, and there's this time period where I tried to go into honors in high school and I couldn't. And I had to take this test. And the problem is I was in special ed and ICR classes, so the content of a word like juxtaposition was never introduced to me. Right. And it is not that I don't understand what this term means. Right. It is, I was never...
You didn't have access.
You didn't allow me to unlock a level of knowledge because you gate kept it.
Right. So behind this accessibility issue. And this is too, that's why I'm talking about people with autism adults with autism arguably have the poorest quality of life of any other community of people living in the United States.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's just what you said. So there's this cumulative lack of access to educational content that would set them up to succeed. And I'm not just talking about the educational content that everyone else gets, but again, educational content that would enhance their abilities and their potentials. Instead, people who are neurodivergent or, considered lesser as students just because they don't learn traditionally, like in the honors classes in AP, are relegated to, a lesser college prep curriculum that doesn't give them that higher opportunity for learning. And that's the biggest contradiction, right? Because a lot of the kids on in schools that have tracking, where they have different levels of content that people are placed in, often the tracks called college prep are actually not preparing those kids for college at all. Those are usually the lower tracks, versus honors or AP,
which is actually CP is a mistake,
right? So like that's where the whole system is. So like you're preparing these kids, quote unquote, for college, knowing that they'll probably never like to go, and it's like you're wasting their time. So they don't get access to the educational experience that'll likely set them up to succeed in later life. They don't get access to organized sports.
Why do you think this happens? Do you think people actually don't care?
No, I don't think.
What's the issue
here? I think it's just a cost, personal benefit kind of situation. So I think I want to be a humanist and believe that all humans are good and that everyone at some level inherently cares about other people and their well-being. But I think that everyone is so taxed day to day, taking care of themselves and their family and everyone else. Like they don't have spare resources to allocate to help.
Well, yeah, so like I taught pull out. So I taught some self-contained. If they could not hack it with me, then they would go to like true self-contained downstairs. I taught North Brunswick for a while, and then I taught ICR, and yeah, they in the testing numbers and all these metrics. They don't I find administrative, and this is all around. It's not like North Brunswick, and it is because like state funding is tied towards these metrics and all these things. So in all honesty, for them, they're just like, I feel like they don't have bandwidth for this thing, which is harder.
No, that's it. It's
which is way harder.
And so to say that they don't have bandwidth means they're not investing the resources in.
Yeah, because they're investing in other resources.
Exactly. And the resources that they're investing in educating kids with autism and other forms of neurodivergence are the bare minimum. That's the thing, right?
Yes.
Again, it's a model of efficiency. And by the way, and like, I don't want to, this is so cliche, like it's so easy for everyone to blame schools for everything. Like
I don't think it's fully
right. That's a bit of
we are the schools.
Yeah, right. You know, like because we're the parents.
We voted in. Literally, we are the schools.
What are everyone else's obligation to nurture this child and set them up for success, right? So again, everyone else is kind of fading into the background, not taking accountability, and schools take the brunt of it, right? So I'm going to premise what I'm about to say by saying like I think schools are unfairly blamed for a lot of society's ills, but autistic and neurodivergent students aren't the only students schools are currently failing, right? So there's generations of students right now, current and former students that are failing to launch in adult life in our society and our country. Like the current rates of like people in their 30s and 40s that are still living at home with their parents, right?
Yes,
astounding. Like it's about half the population in some cases. Right, and you could say like, oh, it's just a cultural shift. What's wrong with that? Isn't that nice? And then say, like, these individuals aren't living with their parents because they want to. That's the distinction. Like many of these young people in their 30s and their 40s who are still living at home with their parents, when asked, like, do you want to be here? They say unequivocally, no, I have to be here, right? Because I haven't launched. I don't have a career. I don't have a source of income that would sustain me independently, right? And I do blame schools for that quite a bit. One, again, for painting higher ed as the only pathway to success, kids going to higher ed, paying a tremendous cost to get a degree in something that doesn't actually set them up to
succeed. So the degree cost is not, and I don't even know how you do this. I kind of think it should be tied towards what the actual, like, what the value of it is. So like pre-med and a teaching degree should not be it shouldn't cost the same.
Right.
Actually, the value of the degree,
it gets complicated.
You know,
a professor's salary is what a professor's salary is.
I know what you mean. Hey, so
like universities are a business, right?
Yeah, that's
so we have to peel back the veil too. And again, like company men love my university, right? But university is a business, and so universities, unfortunately or fortunately for them, kind of sit in this rare identity space where people view it as a societal good, like we need to educate all these future doctors to help society. But then like individuals have to pay for university for personal good, right? So universities aren't really funded by our government like they are in Europe, right? And they're personally funded, and so that the business of university
pseudo personally funded.
Yeah,
because we use federal loans a lot of times to do this.
Right.
But that's a whole different. That's a whole different can of worms. So, what I really want to talk to you about this red book.
Sure.
you have this space that you're opening up for autistic adults. And I always asked, like, because I didn't work with like people with severe learning disabilities. I was always upstairs with the ICR and that sort of thing. And then every summer I would work with that population because it was my favorite population to work with in the summer. It's so fun. And then I would work with my peers who I don't see every day and go, so what happens after like 21? So we have services till 21 here. Are there services outside of here? What happens to these kids? So what happens?
Yeah. So when I got out of the military and landed at Rutgers a month later, thought special education was going to be the thing. After I went and spent some time back in schools, like as an intern and stuff, like I was like, oh no, it's still as bad as it was when I was a kid. Like there's no way I'm going to be able to affect change as a teacher in a classroom within this institutional system. So I quickly kind of pivoted from there and signed up for a little class called Fieldwork in Autism at Rutgers as an undergrad psych student, and ended up working at the Douglas Developmental Disability Center 1 day a week as a student. So I didn't know then, but so apparently the DDC, is the first university-based school for kids with autism that was ever created in the United States. Yeah, and it's a few miles from where we're sitting. So founded in 1972, like 3 years prior to even the original passage of what we now as ID.
Well, New Jersey was the first state to have, and that's why I love New Jersey. People talk smack about Jersey, but hey, people who talk smack about Jersey, we were the first ones to have an actual handicap, like educational, for people with disabilities, rules and regulations. The federal government took our rules and adopted them for IDEA, I think 1975. Yes, 1975.
Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is the piece of federal legislation that mandates a free and appropriate education for all kids with disabilities, regardless of their diagnosis, classification, deficits, abilities, etc. And prior to 1975, like public schools were just able to like turn people away.
They would stick them in an
institution, like Adam's Family looking spooky house, like state institution behind wrought iron gate, like think Willowbrook, right?
Yeah, well, like
for their life sentence there.
What's that horror TV show they did? They did a season in an insane asylum, but like that, those insane asylums, like how.
Right, that's where people
in filth and
I think they didn't even have the precision to call.
No, they didn't even understand
autistic or autism. They were just there's a whole bunch of a slew of derogatory terms that were used to refer to them. So prior to 1975, that was typical. But in 1972, Rutgers had the first school for kids with autism. I'm taking like a more compassionate approach, saying let's not lock them up forever. Let's see if we can help them. It'll be less expensive and it's the humane thing to do, an ethical thing to do. So I took a course called Fieldwork there and got exposed to autism. Like didn't know much about it prior to that. And autism, again, autism is, people with autism are as diverse as people, right? Like again, the neurodiversity applies to the autistic spectrum as well, in that there are some people with autism who are brilliant, cognitively speaking, academically speaking, have 160 IQs and are articulate and, can speak. Maybe they speak a lot, right? And then there are other people with autism who are non-vocal, who can't speak to communicate, who might have, severe intellectual disabilities, who need help with every aspect of life, including self-care, etc. And then everyone in between, right? So I went and worked at the DDC, working with kids who had really severe deficits, most of who had challenging behavior. And as a prior, like infantry sergeant, veteran, like managing crisis was something that I could do really well. And so not knowing anything else, not knowing about behavior analysis or psychology or frankly, like formal education, already I was an asset in the room. Like, hey, you, like large, physically large person, who's physically strong, capable, and like has incredible calm under pressure. Like we need you. So I clicked into like this field of practice where like I wasn't even qualified to do anything yet, but already I had tremendous job security just because I wasn't afraid or was actually interested in managing crisis situations. And it's actually like, I've been talking about like the opportunity for veterans in this field for a long time, because it's like, and it's not just calm under pressure. It's not just ability to make like split-second decisions like in stressful situations, but it's also like the need for intensity that's often.
Yeah, and you know, so I started my own nonprofit, and the idea of it was to get veterans to work with kids more and be interacting in that field, because I find that veterans isolate a lot, and they isolate with other veterans, and typically not in the best places.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea of service after service, and I think many veterans are trying to find meaning in the next occupational practice that they do, because a lot of what we do, even though it is minuscule sometimes, actually does involve a lot of meaning, and if people can get hurt, and like there's operational things.
A lot of vets are drawn to service in the first place because they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
Yes.
Right. And I was absolutely looking for a career that checked that box.
But I think that's why we get our misfit toys.
Yes.
Because no one found meaning in us. And we're just like,
exactly.
Okay, maybe we can find meaning in other things and other people and each other.
And the other thing, like I'm sure you found this too, being someone who was like excited and enthusiastic about working with students or adults who were kind of written off by everyone else, like people generally left me alone and let me do what I want.
Oh, dude, no one bugs me.
Yeah, right.
And especially
right. Again, it's like, you know, maybe the principal peeks in the window, right? Like everyone's in their seat. There's like nothing, you know, there's nothing bad happening in there, and then they just keep going. Like they don't.
And that's
sit
what I
down
mean. And that's, dude, and that's what I mean by it. Like, that's what I mean. Like, do they care?
Right.
And that's why I asked that, because like that's my experience.
Right.
Like. And it might just be they don't understand.
Well, I always try to assume the best, and it's so hard.
I wish I did.
Yeah,
I guess working as a cop in the Army, I'm like, I don't really.
Totally, it's so hard. You have to like actively do it yourself. But so like even in that situation, right? Like being an administrator in a school is often a thankless job. Like it's impossible to make everyone happy in that scenario. Mm-hmm. And so like, you know, being in the headspace of that person, maybe it's not that they don't care, but they just like they have more work to do than there's possibly hours in the day. And if they look in and like, again, it's a model of efficiency, right? Not excellence. Yeah. Like everything's okay. They say, oh, thank God we have Nick there and he's got it under control. Let me move on to the next.
I need you around Chris to reframe for me.
Yeah, it's a daily struggle, right? But so like when I went to the DDC, I learned how to effectively support people with autism with the greatest needs, with the most complex profiles, often also having severe challenging behavior. And then I kind of built a small mini career over the next few years as a direct care staff person, working in after school programs in homes and schools to support children and adolescents with autism with that profile. That's kind of where I specialize, is direct care. And while doing that, I went through Rutgers and got my master's degree in special education. Shortly after that, I got hired at the DDC, where it all had begun for me a few years prior, to run their adult program. And so by then, my Army money had run out for school between my bachelor's and master's. And cool fun fact for anyone who's listening who's interested in going to college without the burden of the cost. Like if you work full time for Rutgers, part of your fringe benefit is full tuition remission.
Yeah.
So I ran the Douglas Adult Program for 23 adults with autism, all with really severe support needs, for the next like 6 years or so, while also finishing up my PhD at Rutgers in educational psychology and getting my board certification in behavior analysis. Going back to being neurodivergent, right? Superpower for sure. But again, it doesn't make me smarter that I did all that so fast all at the same time. Like I had to do it that way, or I wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah, I know. I did an accelerated master's program, worked full time into the Army.
Yep.
I think that's the only way I would have finished.
And I was stressed and exhausted most of the time. Like it wasn't like, it's not necessarily a physically, mentally, or emotionally healthy way to live. Like a lot of clinical psychologists, like if they were listening to this, would say like, oh, like someone should have probably, like even
but I'm winning. What are you going for?
Exactly. Like, I can't slip. It's painful for me both ways to go 1,000 miles an hour, but also to try and slow down. I prefer accomplishing things and getting through it and having tangible like demonstrations of
Well, I think it'd be worse.
Succeeded.
I think it'd be worse for you to not do it.
Totally.
So for other people, it may be a detriment. But even when I was deployed, so when I deployed to Saudi Arabia, I was working a bunch. But the problem is when you're not working, you're either waitlisting or doing nothing.
Yep.
And then I was losing my mind.
That's so garrison time in the infantry in particular, like that's if that garrison time didn't exist, and for those of you listening, garrison is like when you're not deployed
Down
somewhere, or you're not like doing a field experience, like you're just sitting.
I would ask for
at
work.
the company,
And literally.
it would be torture. Like literally, we would clean and re-clean weapon systems, or like do other maintenance on our vehicles. But it was like stuff that was like not necessary. It was literally just busy work for us.
Well,
to do.
so
and it was and I knew like I couldn't do that long term. That's why another reason why I just couldn't do the military.
Well, they don't have enough work sometimes.
Right.
So like,
totally.
And
they
then
have to fill your time.
Yes. And then like I would do this, and during deployment, I went, "Oh, what do you need me to do?" So because they were like, "Oh, you have a master's degree, so you're a sergeant who's like educated."
Right.
So then I became the commander's proof editor. So I edited all the SOPs on the base, and then he was like, "Wow, this guy's really smart. Can you fix our HR department?"
Yeah.
So then I'm an MP, an MPI.
Yeah.
Like I'm an investigator. So I've never done S1.
Right.
So then suddenly I'm in an S1 room, and then they put me in S4 in supply too. So I ran that too, and did my thing. And mostly I just helped these young people with executive function. Right. I did literally what I would do.
Yeah.
In my special needs.
So that's funny. That's like
then they were both departments ran successfully.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly it was just like, "Oh, you're disorganized." And so am I. I'm going to tell you the things that I don't do.
Exactly.
That you should
help you.
That might help you.
Right. And it's sometimes it's a burden to have that level of self-awareness. Right. So like, and it's so funny. Like going back to being a dad, right, and my kids and how we try and engage them. Like a lot of times, like people, like given my level of education and what I do for a living, a lot of times, like I'm consulting to parents who have kids who are complex and have a challenging educational profile, and like a lot of people just automatically think like, "Oh, you must be the best dad in the world." Like, "Oh, parenting must be easy for you." I always say it's like the opposite of that, because the only difference between me and another dad is like I always know when I'm screwing up. Like, and it's constantly, it's like, "Oh, I just did that thing that I'm always telling everyone else not to do," right? Because no matter how educated you are, no matter how much like domain specific content you have in your brain, but you're still human, right? You're still like instinctually responding to the conditions in front of you, like moment to moment, day to day.
It's also different when you
not a robot.
It's also different when you love them.
Oh, totally.
Because like
you're not the therapist, you're their dad.
Yeah,
it's a different role, and like it becomes very the lines between that.
It's like I thought I'm like, it's way easier to deal with challenging children that I don't. That are not mine.
Agree.
Than children that are mine.
Right.
Because there is like, I'm looking at your future.
Yeah, you can emotionally compartmentalize in a much, right? And it's not that you're not emotionally, like I obviously, as we said earlier, like my kids attend Diesel, like you coach my kids. They're there because I know you're emotionally invested in all of your athletes. It's obvious, right? To anyone who comes here, that's why you're successful. But right, that's you're emotionally invested as a coach, not as a parent.
Well, it's funny.
It's different.
So even with my youngest son, I coach him, but I'm actually, the biggest thing I'm trying to find is another coach for him, right? Which is why I have like Gerard there, the Joker, because my job's to love him, right? I want him to be successful in wrestling just because I love wrestling, right? But I don't care, right? And I shouldn't. Because I have to love him, and we can. I'm going to be having conversation with people about youth sports because this is like a big thing too. But before we finish off, I want to talk about
And so when I in 2014 when I got my PhD, I thought I was going to be like traditional university faculty doing research, teaching classes, and wanted to kind of build a workforce of highly trained people. That would be prepared to support adults with autism and other forms of neurodivergence. Because arguably, you asked earlier, like, why do autistic adults have such poor quality of life? It's complicated. Again, whole other conversation. But one of the main contributors is a lack of professional field of practice around like effective approaches to helping adults with autism succeed in the different aspects of adult life, like employment, independent living, community inclusion, financial independence, et cetera, all in things that we have to do as quote unquote successful adults living in society. Like for kids with autism, like there are highly qualified special education teachers everywhere, right? And that's because colleges and universities have developed like formal training paths
and an infrastructure.
Right? Someone comes out with a degree in special education, it means they know something. They know how to have a master.
We have early intervention. My best friend in the world, his wife
know how to do all of this stuff and things. None of that has been done for adults. You said earlier, like nobody really gave a lot of thought to what happened to these kids when they turned 21 and aged out of their educational entitlement. And that is like society-wide. Everyone has assumed that all of these autistic kids who've gotten like a rich educational experience, like everyone's assumed that they're all succeeding somewhere. But like the scary thing is they're not. Like most of them are at home still with their aging parents and don't have the opportunity to live. And we're not just talking about adults with autism with severe challenges. We're talking about like Rutgers college graduates who have gone through my college support program who then can't find a job. Because when you're working with really talented, capable neurodivergent people, it's not any less complex than working with someone with severe challenges. It's just different, right? So like for people who have an obvious disability, like where like they're overtly autistic, right?
Yeah.
If you're out in the community and you see someone struggling or they're engaging in loud vocal stereotypy or motor stereotypy. Like now there's a level of awareness in society where people might be like, oh, they're autistic, right? Whereas like if you see someone with a 160 IQ, a college degree, who's autistic, and maybe that manifests itself by them like talking incessantly and interrupting or not, respecting someone's physical space, like someone will be more likely to attribute that to some personality flaw.
Yeah, like a quirk.
Like he's just a jerk. Like he's just, and so like it's really hard to find someone a job sometimes, right? When they're really capable and autistic, and people are just assuming like he could control all that stuff if he really wanted to.
So how does what you're doing alleviate this? Because it's a first.
Yeah, it's a first of its kind. So at the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services, we serve all people with autism. I have 4 different programs there. I talked about my morning, and I was referring to a patient that's in our intensive outpatient clinic. Across the board for adults with autism, there's not great services. And again, there's like little pockets where things are really bad. And for adults with autism that have life-threatening self-injury, aggression, property destruction, there's no program on the planet for those people to go to get therapeutic care. Most of them end up in the back of a police car and end up in the emergency room. Unfortunately,
a lot of people in prison.
Yeah, the correction system. I get letters from prison from people who say, I don't know what I did. I don't know why I'm here. This is a misunderstanding. I'm autistic.
It honestly hurts my soul. When I learned about this,
terrifying, and there's not much I can do in situations.
It hurts my soul.
Totally. But so the IOC supports people with the most intensive needs. I have a program that's like a comprehensive adulting program for people across the spectrum. I have a mental health program called the Psychological Services Clinic, where like the next generation of the best and brightest clinical psychologists are learning how to help autistic and other.
This is all in your space.
It's all in my.
So is the Red Bank and push the next?
Yeah. So and then there's our college support program, which is for like matriculated autistic and neurodivergent students at Rutgers. So those are the 4, and then all of those people, no matter what your profile or identity, needs, deficits are, need excellent supportive places to live. Currently, there's really no model that's replicable at a big scale to help all of these folks actually move out of their parents' house and kind of launch into adult life, no matter who you are. Whether you're someone who was like blowing the curve in your aerospace engineering class in grad school and autistic, or you're someone who's minimally vocal and you need someone with you at all times to make sick. Across the whole spectrum, like there's no opportunities for independent living. So Thrive Red Bank is a world's first in that we're building a gorgeous luxury apartment building, 32 individual apartments in the heart of Red Bank, which is
all over it.
Yeah, for those of you who know, it's such a happening spot.
That was where. So I was in a small detachment in Red Bank. My unit was over there, So I would always go on our break during the day for lunch. We would go hang out in the Red Bank, me and my boy Pacheco, and get Smoothie King and walk together through this like beautiful downtown.
Yeah, it's so cool, and it's like the main street is like what you would envision, like an historic, like cultural being. Like there's theaters and restaurants.
So is that why you chose Red Bank?
Yeah, so it's because it's a cultural hub and walkable. Like the thing of like one of the secret ingredients in building out excellent programs for neurodivergent adults is accessibility. And
it's the least restrictive environment.
Exactly. So we need our folks. So another thing is like only about 10 to 15% of autistic adults actively drive. So a lot of times things like locations need to be physically accessible. Like someone needs to be able to walk to the train station, hospital, supermarket, education, all that. And so, the spot on Dr. James Parker Boulevard in Shrewsbury Ave, where Thrive Red Bank will be located, is like in the heart of a community that's totally walkable, totally accessible. And for anyone who's interested in learning more about that, the best place to go is parentswithaplan.org. Parents with a Plan is the affiliated nonprofit to Thrive Red Bank. There's beautiful renderings and stuff on there on the website. It's first of its kind in that we're showing that all people deserve to live in a beautiful place where they have the opportunity to reach their full potential. But it also has this partnership with a major research university in Rutgers, with RCAAS, Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services in particular, where it's also going to help train the next generation of future practitioners who want to specialize in working with adults on the spectrum.
Do you think this is a proof of concept?
Definitely.
For other places?
Yeah. So that's the idea. The Thrive brand in particular is planned to be replicated in towns and cities throughout New Jersey. The second property will be somewhere geographically closer to Rutgers. We're looking in New Brunswick, Highland Park, North Brunswick, East Brunswick, for potential property where we're going to stand up the second one.
This is before we start wrapping up, because I know you have a busy day.
Yep.
I just want you to understand the work you're doing is some of the most meaningful work we need today in our society, and I really appreciate that. And although I don't represent everybody in the community, thank you, because this is, and as much as not everybody loves RFK's message and how he says what he's saying or agrees, the rate of autism and neurodivergent people in our society is increasing.
NIH estimates 1 in 5 people already are neurodivergent some way. So for those of you listening that don't think that this applies to you, I guarantee someone who's neurodivergent is really close to you. It's 1 in 5 people living in the United States are neurodivergent.
And we don't know why.
Right.
But it doesn't even matter at this point.
Right.
What are we going to do? Because the real dystopian thing is to do nothing.
Right.
And what you're planning and the direction you're moving, I think is going to be a really beautiful proof of concept of how public and private entities can actually come together to do insanely meaningful work that is needed.
Well, and talk about back to our conversation about value proposition of the university too, right? So now I'm recruiting potentially first-year undergraduate students and saying, hey, here's a North Star. Here's a direction. If you follow this degree path, right, there's limitless job opportunities when you get out, and that job will be, have meaning beyond just yourself, and you'll be contributing to the good of society. Because I think the other thing here is obviously I am talking about the importance of this from a humanity perspective. Think about, the people with autism whose talents are being wasted, right? And how their families are being impacted. And, that should matter to everyone just in terms of the humanity of it. Again, all people are good. All people care about other people on some level, hopefully, right? But I could, zoom out and just make an appeal just from an economic perspective, right? For the good of everyone. Currently, adults with autism, the 5.5 million adults with autism that have been identified who are living in the United States, right? 5.5 million adults with autism living in the United States currently have about an 85% unemployment rate.
Yeah, that's a market not being serviced. So from a deeply just like, if you are an extreme capitalist, you know, helping people is good business.
Right.
So like this is a subset of society that is missing.
That the humans that would be employed to help, right, that I would be training to do a good job, like that would drive like our economy, right? So that there's like a lot of people who would have good jobs, even in the face of the AI revolution, right? This is a job, like until we have holographically generated direct support personnel that comes out of the autistic adult's phone and like, you know, takes them through their day. Even then, like there's still going to be a need for a physical human to help these people. So one, like an industry that has job security, right, that would benefit our whole society, because now this adult with autism is not stuck living at home with their aging parents, and their aging parents like doesn't have the emotional, psychological burden of worrying about what's going to happen to that adult with autism when they eventually pass away before them, right? And the adult with autism gets some kind of job that they enjoy, that they can add value. So it would be a win-win-win for society if only we took a more proactive approach to ensuring that all adults with autism got excellent supports to help them reach their potential, versus the current approach, which is very reactive, right? Where if there's a parallel here to the education system, but everyone gets the very bare minimum to stay alive. Most adults with autism are warehoused in quote unquote day programs, where they go to a single building and they sit there all day. Are supported in like a 1-to-5 ratio, 1 staff to 5 adults, and that's like considered good and acceptable. And they're not really doing anything meaningful, productive, or functional to improve their quality of life or to add value to society, right? So, and the only people in that arrangement who end up getting more funding or more resources are people who lapse into crisis. So we have this like putting out fires, like wait to fail approach, where it's only the adults with autism who are in the worst possible situation who actually get help. And if we wait for someone to be in the worst possible situation before we push in and give them like optimal supports, the best we could ever hope for is just to bring them back up to the floor of baseline. They just go back to attending that day program 5 days a week, sitting there all day and like, you know, maybe sorting poker chips or folding and unfolding socks in a never-ending chain. So again, this is like, it's not only important for humanity, right, to take an interest in this and understand that there are people with autism who aren't being given the opportunity to live anything that resembles a happy, healthy adult life, but also like we're just setting money on fire in our country with the current approach and not getting good outcomes. Like this is another place where like there's like zero accountability. Like the state, the state agencies that are in charge with ensuring that these systems operate well, like we're just like totally exposed as being like not effective. Like NorthJersey.com just have this incredible expose on the state of the horrible conditions of abuse and neglect in group homes throughout New Jersey, for people with autism and other forms of neurodivergence. So like we know this is not working, and this is where I get cynical, Nick, because at like the end of the day, I'm like, why doesn't anyone care about this? Like if people actually cared, they wouldn't just say it's important. They would actually do something about it. And like legislators are the people in particular I'm calling out, because every legislator wants to run on a platform that they care about people with autism and their families in New Jersey, because it represents a pretty big voting block. But I see very little meaningful action legislatively to do anything that proactive to improve the quality of life for people with autism.
Well, you know what, Chris? You are. And I really appreciate it. And I think some of these people should take heed of what you're doing and follow step and maybe talk to you and listen. Is there anything you would like to leave off on, call to action or anything that you would like to tell our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's a lot of content online. So everyone could follow our organizational Facebook page at the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services. Thrive Red Bank, again, broke ground a couple weeks ago. So if you have an interest in potentially applying to live there, we have a pre-leasing application that people could fill out for any prospective students with autism who want to go to an excellent college. Like Rutgers is an amazing place. We have an awesome program. The Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services College Support Program is worth checking out. And then for anyone who's interested in a meaningful career, helping other people, in a meaningful career, not stuck in a classroom all day doing the same thing on a like Groundhog Day on a loop, but like a meaningful career where your job is to like be a partner to a neurodivergent adult and go out on adventures every day, like adventures in employment, adventures in, recreation. You should also, reach out because we're looking for people like you. And if you're a veteran, that's doubly true. Like I want more vets, to be involved in this work. And I think it's a great possible career for a lot of people that have the veteran profile. And I can't thank you enough for caring enough to highlight this.
Thank you again, Chris, for coming. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, brother. I have a feeling like this won't be the last time I'm here. There's a lot to unpack here. We only skimmed the surface.
Awesome. Ready? Okay. That was right, the beep.